Great. Well, it's 12 o'clock in the UK and at different times around the Commonwealth. Thank you, everyone who's here today, joining this very special webinar as part of the Commonwealth Tribute to Life 2025 series of webinars. So I'm Dale Gardner, calling to you from the UK. I chair our implementation group, our international implementation group. So fantastic to be here. So I'm now going to welcome David Thomson as the Regional Coordinator for Africa to take us forward today. So wonderful. Over to you, David.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Dale, for the introduction. It's my pleasure to be co-hosting this webinar with Peggy John from Canadian Blood Services. Peggy's the Director of Organ and Tissue Donation and Transplantation at CBS. And I'm a critical care subspecialist and a transplant surgeon at Groote Hospital in Cape Town. So this is Canada and South Africa's turn to host a webinar. And we thought we'd do it on a topic where we've had a recent collaboration facilitated through the Commonwealth Tribute to Life project. And it's related to educating parents and children on organ donation. And specifically the Mighty Orgamites, their Mighty Education program. And it's been a real pleasure to engage with the creator, Royden Turner, and CBS, and to bring this toolkit to South African school teachers. It really does challenge a different space that I, as a healthcare professional stuck in academia with the university and teaching hospitals, don't get to do enough junior school education. So this has been really a pleasure to engage with. So it's our pleasure to take you through our collaboration today. I'm going to just check that this moves forward. So here you can see the Orgamites, and you're going to meet them today.
The Orgamites Mighty Education Program is a children's organ donation and health education program. It's led by the Orgamites, the mighty organs. These are the organs most needed for organ donation and transplantation.
It's a wonderful program that teaches children about the power of their mighty organs. It teaches them what they are, how to take care of them, and also the concept of kindness.
Canadian Blood Services is gifting this program to South Africa because we realize that the idea of donation doesn't stop just with organs. So this is another way we can demonstrate the powerful impact of giving.
The children were super excited. I think they found it very informative and was super age appropriate as well. So it was a very good lesson.
The Orgamites has really opened my eyes as to how early you can move that conversation and how wholesome it can be at such a young age.
So I'd like to welcome you all, and I need to give a shout out to various people who have helped this project. So Canadian Blood Services, the Commonwealth Tribute to Life, the South African Transplantation Society, and the Transplant Education for Living Legacies, a recipient-run non-profit in South Africa, and the All Good Company, which was the company Royden Turner founded and created the Orgamites with. I'm going to hand over to Peggy now because this journey started in Canada before it even got to South Africa, and we're very definitely piggybacking on their experience. So over to you, Peggy.
Great, thank you, and hello everyone. It's wonderful to join you from. Currently on the east coast of Canada, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, so I'm not sure what time it is where those of you are. But Canada is a vast country. We have 10 different provinces and 3 territories, and we often refer to ourselves as a federated state. So healthcare is provincially delivered. It's delivered by the provinces and territories. But also education, like healthcare, is provincial. And so there's no single body that controls the education system. There are all those variety of school boards that will be responsible for education in their area. But also just sharing with you the needs in Canada. So currently more than 4,000 people across this country are waiting for a transplant. And each year, approximately 250 people die waiting. Next slide, thank you. And so we have a complicated landscape. So within each of those provinces, we have different provincial organizations who are responsible for managing the donation and transplant program. And our role at Canadian Blood Services is as the national coordinating agency. So we bring these disparate groups together to improve the system for all Canadians, regardless of where they live in the country. And why did we bring this education program? Well, first of all, important to know that like other jurisdictions, our new intent to donate registration numbers have been trending down. So each different jurisdiction has experienced a decline in the number of new registrations over the years. So next slide, if you could, please. We also know that we're currently in a situation, I think since COVID, where there is an increasing amount of distrust or mistrust. There's a significant amount of misinformation, but that mistrust in government, in healthcare even, is finding its way to organ donation as well. And certainly stories of misinformation that are circling around various media platforms don't help that situation. Next slide. We also know that organ donation occurs at a time of tragedy, and there is tremendous amount of emotion involved. We know from our research that there are a number of emotional barriers that do deter potential organ donors. Certainly concerns about mistrust, as I mentioned, but also the notion of there are some people who, phrase it as not wanting to tempt fate. If I register, does that mean something is going to happen? Or even the notion of if I register my decision, does that mean those doctors won't try to save my life? And so many factors in this space. And certainly, again, we know in Canada that there was a false balance of coverage related to COVID vaccine and transplant. And so it is a challenging environment in which to encourage people and continue to encourage people to embrace organ donation. So next slide, if you could, please. So our role as the national coordinating agency, what we're really trying to do is work together with our provincial partners to foster a trusted and caring culture of organ donation in Canada. And we're working in a variety of ways. So we believe that we need to have year-round, sustained approach to awareness and education. We work on collaborative campaigns. One of the most important things we also work on is consistent messaging. So ensuring that what we're saying or what one jurisdiction or province is saying doesn't differ from what the messages are in another part of the country. But one of the really, really important things that we decided was where we needed to focus our energy now and going forward was on youth education. And that's where we are today. So next slide. So we do know that organ donation is not a topic that is frequently discussed by adults. It's not, definitely not even talked about by adults, but certainly not by children very often. But we do know from research in other sort of culture changing or shifting processes that early education is foundational. And so our work in Canada is aiming to help teachers and parents to be able to skillfully and easily raise the topic of organ donation in ways that complement their curriculum, but also provide a variety of ways to meet them where they're at. So whether they need a full curriculum, an easy little activity that fits into National Organ Donation Awareness Week, which is what it is in Canada this week, or something that they can do as an assignment that takes the students down a much deeper path in studying this issue. And next slide, please. And so that's where we landed on the Orgamites and Royden Turner's mighty organs. So the team of 9 life-saving organs that are have the power to save lives. And so they are the organs that are most likely to be transplanted. And there are several toolkits in this program. I'll tell you a little bit about more later, but if you could go to the next slide, because I just want to share with you one of the other reasons why we brought the Orgamites to Canada was this couple here, who are the parents of an organ donor his name was Logan Boulay, and he was involved in a tragic bus accident involving a hockey team. And Logan went on to donate 6 of his organs. And his parents are teachers. His mom, Bernie Boulay, is an elementary school teacher, and she was inspired. His parents were inspired to create an event called Green Shirt Day because they shared the story of Logan's decision, of having registered his decision, and that story was shared widely across the media in Canada, and the result of sharing their story meant that more than 100,000 Canadians were inspired by that and made the decision to register, to sign up to be an organ donor. And the Boulay family have continued to be very strong advocates for all things organ donation. But Bernie was looking to bring the topic of organ donation to her grade 2 classroom. And she had very much difficulty finding any resources that would help her to speak to children. And she, in her search, stumbled upon the Orgamites. And she shared them with us, with our team, with my colleague Jenny Ryan, who's watching on YouTube. And Jenny reached out to Royden Turner, the creator of the Orgamites, and that resulted in the start of a partnership where we licensed the Orgamites for Canada, and we have since been on a path to bring this to our country. So next slide, if you could. I just wanted to show you the next slide because Canada is big in hockey, many of you know. And so one of the challenges we gave to the creator of the Orgamites was to put the Orgamites in hockey jerseys, because one of our main awareness campaigns each year is Green Shirt Day. And we wanted to have the Orgamites participate in Green Shirt Day. And the Orgamites, with the exception of the lungs, do not have arms. So it was a challenge that was happily accepted by Royden Turner, the creator. So next slide, if you could, please. So the Orgamites, as I mentioned, it's a cornerstone of our education program. There are 3 lesson plans in there. The first one teaches children about their mighty organs, what they do, and the fact that they can be donated. The second module is really about taking care of yourself and what you need to do to be well and to live a good, healthy life. And the third one is really about kindness. And that's really where people think about how they could save someone else's life. So next slide, if I could. So how did we introduce the Orgamites in Canada? Well, because we have this federated system where there are more than 800 different school boards, and the school boards really dictate what can or cannot be taught, we knew we needed to take a more grassroots approach. And so we have been working for the past 3.5 years on inspiring teacher champions. Those teacher champions sometimes have a connection to organ donation, like the Boulay family, but many times they don't. And really, we've been reaching out to those teachers at a variety of different events. We've been putting advertisements in their teacher journals, but we've been going to places like fan expos or Comic Cons, and I don't know if they have those kinds of events in your country, but they are places where people dress up in all sorts of costumes, and it's a very welcoming environment. And we have partnered at those events to bring the Orgamites to a wide audience. And what we've discovered is teachers love to dress up, and librarians love to dress up and go to these kinds of events. And that's been a tremendously successful path for us in part of that. But we've also looked at partnering with libraries to provide resources to them for reading circles, various opportunities where they're engaging with children. And we do have a strong social media presence, and we continue to reach out and to look for opportunities to share the messages about the Orgamites. But we also partner with our patient groups, like like David referenced, the Legacies of Life for Education. In Canada, we have what's called the Canadian Transplant Association. It's a group of transplant recipients and donor families from across the country. And we partner with organizations like that to continue to create champions who will take this and use this program in their classroom. And next slide. And so that for me was a really quick hit about why we decided to embrace the Orgamites. And then I happened to connect to David through both the Commonwealth Tribute to Life, but also through the International Society for Organ Donation and Procurement. And David and I got chatting one time. He happened to see a booth we had talking about our education approach and about the Orgamites. And from there, we said, how can we bring this to South Africa? So over to you, David.
Thanks very much, Peggy. That's really awesome. So now we can jump to South Africa. And you've seen from the promotion video, or the video created from the launch event, it's quite a trek along across the world. So the South African leg actually starts with the creator, because Royden grew up in South Africa, along the coast from us, about 800 kilometers out from Cape Town, is my understanding. But now he lives in London and has pursued a career there. But he created the Orgamites after initially being approached in his role with advertising and marketing. And these slides were from his talk at the launch event, because this has been going for quite some time. It's got traction in Greece, also in Northern Ireland, and very definitely in Canada. And it was really interesting to go into this space, because I think, what's the point of the project? Like, what's the aim? For me, it's not to convert into signed registers. I think that's downstream effect. I think it's all about promoting conversations and letting those conversations be knowledgeable. And that really is the focal point. And I don't think people can stop you from saying, well, you should encourage people to have informed discussions, because everyone still gets to decide. And South Africa operates in a culture with a lot of previous disparity, ongoing disparity, a lot of mistrust. And it's really important that we empower people to have conversations and know about their system. So one of the main things that came out from me from engaging with the Orgamites is that children are the vehicle for the adults to have conversations as well. And if you have children driving the conversation on such a basic fundamental level of well, these are the mighty organs. Did you know they can be moved? So that you can't claim ignorance. And then do you know how to look after them? Because I think we have to embed everything in health messaging into a preventative arm. And that's really true for us, where we can't afford all these expensive therapies. And we must all acknowledge the cost of a transplant is absolutely massive. And if we can prevent needing to get to one, then there's a huge benefit to the system. So that messaging really is core, because I think this is a health messaging tool, not just a donation promotion tool. So that's really important. And then when you boil down to it, fundamentally, you can be kind in a number of ways, and empowering our students to know that they can be kind in all the different ways they can. And then ultimately, it always boils down to a conversation, because no one is proceeding in the face of a family objection, regardless of what your semantics of your legal system are. If a family is strenuously objecting, then we don't force the issue for donation in that setting. But you want them to be able to make an emotional, an educated decision in a very emotionally fraught time. So moving it this way and away in this kind of context to make it feel so positive is really, really good. And I think we don't have enough awareness in our mainstream media. And the Orgamites very definitely is a tool for that, to promote what it is. And as Peggy mentioned, it's those three toolkits. They're lesson plans, and they come with supporting coloring sheets and activities for the teachers to engage with and to offer to their students. And toolkit one is Mighty Me, and that's the information about the organs. Then we've got Mighty Habits, and then we've got Mighty Kind. And I think this is a nod to the Greeks to use their pillars in this in the material. So here you can see the balloon getting inflated, and this was the film crew that actually helped put together the video. And here you can see the mascot. And then just to say, Peggy mentioned that people like dressing up, and I have to say a mascot, which I'd never engaged with before so close. I'd seen them remotely, maybe at a sporting event from miles away. But the degree of engagement you get is absolutely massive. So I think I've got another video for you, just to show you how the heart mascot was made, and to give you a bit of context to that. I think Canada has a central heating issue, and in South Africa you've got an overheating issue. So that was creating the mascot. So that was one of the focal points for our launch event, to create the buzz. And it really, really did make that positive vibe possible. And then just to say that we managed to partner on the collaboration to an international pediatric nephrology congress that was happening in Cape Town. First time this was being held in the African continent. And this unlocked, Peggy mentioned we met at a booth at another international conference. And CBS was well versed in being able to man these booths and use these for promotion. And then we partnered with TEL, a local South African NGO working in the education space related to donation, and then our Professional Transplant Society as well. And we ran a very successful booth. And these stands have now been donated or given to the Cape Town Science Centre to hopefully create an engagement stall within their centre. And I'll talk to that a little bit more. And then what we needed to do was to adapt some of the content to the South African situation. And I'll take you through some of that adaptation, because there's actually not that much. One of the things we had to change was the Organ Donor Awareness Month in our country is August. So we had to make that August, ORGUS, as opposed to September, I think, which is the Organ Awareness Month in Canada. And then within the toolkits, there's actually some really beautiful parts that teachers can go to. It's not in the lesson plans, but if teachers want to go further and potentially use it for the older children, and this is aimed for children aged 5 to 11. These type of case studies allow the teachers to engage with the students on different ways. So we used we put it up onto the website and with the toolkits, and then we adapted the FAQ. And I think I've got it after this, what we adapted in the South African stories. So for us, the FAQ was quite important. It's often what people turn to. So how many people on the waiting list in our country? And we've not got very good stats, but we know that we've got over 9,000 people waiting for a transplant. And we also know in the government sector, we don't offer dialysis to people who aren't transplant candidates, because transplantation offers the best quality of life to those patients with the longest survival benefit. So we had to adapt those numbers. Also, the law related to can children sign on to the organ donor register in South Africa was slightly different. They can sign up. Our register is just an expression of intent. So it actually opens the door to the conversation at the end of life for what would this person have wanted to happen, but it doesn't carry legal weight like an advance directive in our environment. So children can actually sign up onto it at any age. And then you need to place that in context, because actually being on the register doesn't supplant what a parent would decide about a child in terms of giving consent to donation, or the fact that the system always engages with the grieving family to get their permission to proceed. So that is that's the safety net behind this. This is all that we're promoting, is that the family will be giving permission, and let's have educated conversations about it. So here you can see we found our South African recipients who signed consent to share their stories. And here you can see a liver recipient. And then the children get the little scenario that they can read through, because in South Africa, and I think around the rest of the Commonwealth, we preferentially allocate pediatric organs into pediatric recipients, especially for heart and lung, where you have to get a size match. So actually, if you think about it, these young transplants, especially for heart and lung, are not able to happen unless another child and their grieving parents gave consent. So this really makes it very real, that people this is real for people, and that we need everyone to support donation. Otherwise, the access to transplant will be much, much limited. So here you can see 2 stories, and then we've got a heart transplant and also a living donor kidney transplant within the story as well. And then you can also speak to the case studies asked, like what type of donation, could they interpret what the story was? And then to ask, how do you think the donor or the family of the donor might feel in those contexts? And it really helps to have talked about it before. And Peggy mentioned the Logan Boulet effect. I mean, the fact that they'd had that family conversation is what drove that process and enabled Bernie and her husband to support donation in that example. And I really don't think, especially in my context, we don't talk about it enough at home in those environments. But that's not to say that we don't have donors in South Africa, and we really do. And these were in the press where the families had consented to share that information. But we do have young donors who are empowered by their parents and are living on through the gift of donation. So here you can see one of the activities. Imagine you are one of those recipients and you are asked to write a thank you letter to the family who gave you the gift of life. And then how would you actually do that? I've never had to do this. And I think this would be quite a challenge, but I think a really good learning experience. So I really think the content within the toolkits is really well thought out. And then combined with the launch, we engaged, because art is really a good mechanism to engage with projects like this. So Works of Heart was Canada, gave the task to their students. And I won't ask you to judge which artworks are the higher quality. It's very obviously clear, but you can see these are lovely diagrams from Canada. And then you can see the vibrancy of Africa here. And we had an exchange of the programs, and that's what you saw, the exchange happening in the promotional video at the start. But it was really nice to see the children engage and incorporate the Orgamites into their drawings in quite subtle ways, and also the gift from Canada to South Africa in terms of the flags. What else did we do? And this, I think, talks to Peggy's point that education is not prescribed. It's not a central bit and then it just automatically disseminates. We've got lots of different mechanisms for educating on many different forums, be that in the community, be that through religious leaders. But we ran some school engagements, and 4 schools engaged openly with the content, okay? So we had Pinelands North, we had Wynberg Girls, Rustenburg Girls Junior, and Kalk Bay Primary. And they all engaged, and you saw them engaging with the content, and the teachers landed with the toolkit, did not need any priming. It's so natural to use it and have these conversations. And I think having the heart mascot really created the vibe in the rooms. I'm not sure how long the material will hold out for, but we're going to see how much mileage we can get from heart. And then also we went past Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital, because the children are where the need is, and it's always a shortage. So here you can see our Children's Hospital and heart visiting and some of the transplant recipients there. Where are we going with this project next? Well, we are engaging with the curriculum and the government school system. And it's a really appropriate quote from Nelson Mandela that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I really think we want to change our donation rates with having these conversations throughout all age groups and having them informed. So that this is now a partnership between the Education Department and the Department of Health and Wellness. And then we've engaged just down the road from our hospital. There's actually the Cape Town Science Centre. It's got a good backdrop of Devil's Peak Mountain, which is next to Table Mountain. And here you can see the inside where it's quite STEM focused. So math, science, activities and puzzles. And we're aiming to place the Orgamites into here. And then they have education demonstrations and within an auditorium at predetermined time intervals over the weekend through the school holidays, and the schools do outings to here. So we're using the toolkit to develop that there. And actually next week on 3 of the days, the hospital sending staff to do some lectures, and the Cape Town Science Centre has got their educators doing some demonstrations related to the different organs to empower those discussions. We're also pursuing teacher expos. So actually there's a schoolscape where actually the principals go around. So also related to Comic-Con and all these expos, but actually where do the principals go to get their ideas? There are these forums. So we're going to put the Orgamites into the schoolscapes. And then there's actually continuing education systems for the school teachers in South Africa where they have to show that they're continually developing themselves. And Snaplify is a platform where you can qualify for these points, and we're creating 3 education videos of how to use the toolkits as something that the teachers can access, because it's on the website, but you've just got to click there. There's these 3 toolkits, and there's an abbreviated lesson plan, there's a full lesson plan, and there's also these extra toolkits. There's even a toolkit to send home with the children for their parents to engage with. So just to conclude, where we're going, we're also following a network of champions. This has been my experience trying to educate across medical schools as well. You need the local champions to be engaging with your content and using it. And these tools are hopefully exactly what they need. We've got a Heart of Cape Town museum related to the very first heart transplant here, where the schools come through. And I'd really like to incorporate the Orgamites into that, because I don't think we should treat heart transplant as purely a historical construct for South Africa. It's an ongoing need and an ongoing service that we offer, but it's completely dependent on donor conversations being successful. And then the Science Centre, this is really a fun project for next week. And then we're developing with the education team. We are also engaging with intermediate and senior phase, because I think you can take those conversations and empowerment of students quite far with the content related to the critical thinking needed related to donation, the decision making, how do you engage around it. But on its foundational level, the Orgamites is just so wholesome to engage with. It's really, you keep it simple, it gets hard to see where the negativity is in that core message. But you do receive a degree of blowback from people thinking, oh, you can't teach this to children, you're brainwashing them. But actually, when it's health messaging and just about empowerment, and that there's always a conversation, then there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And then we need to change it. We've got 12 official languages in South Africa. So English is the version we've got. I know there is a Greek version and there's a French version as well. But we need to get it into our African languages, and actually sign language is one of our official ones. But I'm not quite sure how we put that up onto YouTube. Cool. And then just some thank yous for the people that helped in South Africa in terms of supporting it. Our local tissue bank, the Science Centre, all helped the launch event that we ran. The South African Transplant Sports Association, Blood SA, DKMS, and our Organ Donor Foundation. And a big thank you to the Commonwealth Tribute to Life, who helped set up these networks and are letting them amplify all this good work by various people. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Really, really amazing. David, why don't you choose one of the best Orgamite pictures you've got and share that screen so when we can have our chat so people can keep looking at how visual they are. That'll be really nice.
So there was a Canadian winner and a South African winner, so everyone can be winners. That's really important to do it that way.
Or even one of the lovely Orgamites themselves, so that's whatever you want. Great, Everett. We got some time for some questions, which is really exciting. There's some in the chat, but before I'm going to take sort of since I've got the mic prerogative, like everyone often talks about the Orgamites for children, but I have to confess, I quite like them myself, and I'm over the age of 50. Do we have to be so? Are they perhaps they're for everyone? I just wanted to see what you guys think, Peggy and David.
Well, I would actually echo that for certain, because they're one of the other aspects of the program is little animated videos. So there's a video that you see kidney dancing, and kidneys telling you what kidney does, or liver saying, I have 500 jobs. All kinds of people are learning from this program. It isn't just children; it's truly adults that are learning as well. So definitely.
David,
Yeah.
what do you
I also think because you're starting so low down, you parents have a pressure to have an opinion about this, and they feel obliged to jump and have an opinion. And when you boil it down to, well, what actually informs that? It's not a race to the opinion. It's actually educating yourself. So I also think that really helps, because there's no question too silly about what a kidney does or how hard a small bowel works versus a large bowel. Yeah.
Fantastic. So if you want to put any questions, put in the chat. I could see a hand up as well, but we'll go through the questions for a second. So Sarah Plant, who's from the UK, said, once the school takes up their learning materials, do you find that they naturally continue to roll it out each year? Peggy maybe has got more experience with that. What happens in your schools?
I would say yes, absolutely. And so that's why, this is a partner program to national campaigns. So yes, teachers will do it on their own, but certainly, as David referenced, in South Africa, they will have August as their national month. We're also here in Canada, well, there is a National Awareness Week in April. We are also aiming for a month in Orgtober, so October. So those kinds of events will encourage them to bring it forward. But the other thing that's really important to know is that this is not a static program. The resources continue to be added and built. And that's one of the real benefits of a global alliance approach to this, is that what we might adapt for us in Canada could easily also be used in South Africa, or some of the things that Greece has done. We've said, can we just do a tiny little tweak on that for Canada? And so it's a collaborative resource that continues to be built. So it's not a static program.
Fantastic. I can see that Lucy Dames and Vicente Ramesh have both put beautiful supportive comments, and Lucy gave some details of the colouring in that she shared in the school, which is really good. But Catherine McEwen from Northern Ireland says, are Canadian and South African resources all curriculum linked? or is it a work in progress? Do you find that this makes a big difference? Anything that really encourages teachers to take them up? And Catherine, you feel free to jump on, Catherine, and talk yourself. But Catherine leads the sort of marketing and schools engagement in Northern Ireland.
Yes, I
David
can
first,
maybe
then
talk
Peggy.
to curriculum linking because I think it's a holy grail that we sink a lot of time into, but I think empowering teachers to use it in a critical mass is the approach we've taken. It does link into the curriculum. So when I speak to the education department, they go, oh, this fits well with our life skills, where they are teaching components of what the organs do, but they're not stating that expressly they're so fancy and in such short supply, and that these are the ones that can be transplanted, which I think is a needed addition into that you can add that messaging and that you empower your population for what is possible. So I'm not 100% sure it makes a big difference. I think when you get to older children and university, I think assessment drives learning, and being incorporated in there in some formal thing really does drive people to consume resources a little bit more. But I think on the Orgamites level, where it's engagement, I'm not sure that you have to force it into the curriculum and all the never-ending meetings and approval processes, because it looks like our teachers are very empowered to engage with what content interests their students, has a positive message, and creates that environment.
Yeah, I would
Peggy?
echo that. Absolutely. It's and in Canada, where we have 800 different school boards, each driving and 10 provinces driving different approaches to curriculum, the grassroots approach for us is absolutely the way to go.
So I can see Vicente asked a question here. We'd be happy to have the link for Orgamites with permission to use the material in our country. I guess the Orgamites isn't, it's not owned by Canadian Blood Service or South Africa. There's an agreement with the company that created them. So how does that work? And what if someone is like Vicente interested? How do they go about it? Peggy?
Yeah, and certainly we've been chatting a little bit on the side about could we create a bit of a global alliance that would make this even more accessible and more used. In Canada, how it works is we purchase an annual licensing agreement, and in my view, it's a reasonable amount of funds, and then depending on what our specific plans are in terms of special customization, like getting the Orgamites in hockey jerseys, then we will sometimes dedicate some additional funds to support specific outreach that we will have. So yes, we do. And we are hoping that more and more countries will begin to use the program. And I think that if we're able to do that, then it will become even more cost effective for all of us because that ability to share is easier.
David?
Yes. I mean, you can access a lot of the resources online to download. So we could access them, and that's how Bernie found it in the first place. You can access them, you can download them. Tweaking them to be specific for your environment in terms of a website for an FAQ, there is a cost involved with that component and maintaining them. But the core material is not under, and my understanding also is like you're not allowed to adapt it. So you've got to use it in the form that it's been made, because we don't want to see the Orgamites being sold on the black market or promoting trafficking in any way. So yes, so that resources are available that people can access from around the world. And I would just go to the orgamites.ca website or even the orgamites.co.za website. And maybe your consent system more often matches the South African one. And then that FAQ is the more appropriate version for you. So that's why I spend a little bit of time on the highlight of where those nuances are in the toolkits. Because that you don't want to inadvertently spread the wrong message in your context. So that would be just the one word of caution in using that content, that you do use the one but it's not much. And the fundamental messaging and the coloring sheets, that's for the whole world. And Royden has
Yeah.
been really generous and sharing in that way. But I think Peggy's point on the continual engagement and the continual refining, then it doesn't become stale. It becomes an ongoing process where people are actively engaging with it. And I think that's also where there's a big benefit to it. This isn't one display that you run once and then you fixed all donation in your country for the rest of the time. It's an ongoing process and relationship to develop it and create those engagements.
Yeah, fantastic.
I
Well,
will
follow on
say,
from
certainly,
yeah, go, Peggy.
sorry, Dan. Just going to build on that in that absolutely the resources are free in Canada. They're there and they're free as David says, so they are free to use as is. It is the customization and the collaboration and that is the requires the licensing and those kinds of things. And the beauty of it, as David says, is it meets teachers where they're at. So whether it is a poster or a coloring sheet or a complete lesson plan, it meets them where they're at. So and it can simply be about this week, someone in the classroom, they've learned a student isn't well and may need a transplant, and they can all learn what do their kidneys do. They can use this program to teach that. So.
Yeah, that'll be really powerful for that. Catherine, do you want to pop on? Can you put your camera on? Because you've asked a question. And you also, we know that you use it in Northern Ireland. Maybe just a few little reflection and then ask away your question. Currently, I think you're on. There you go.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for those insights. It's been really useful. And yes, I have been working with Royden on the Orgamites for the last couple of years, and he's really, really good, really creative, really enthusiastic, and can if you come up with an idea, he'll sort of work with you to help develop it, which is brilliant. But I suppose my question was around just that. How do you really enthuse the teachers? We got good feedback and good uptake, but it's keeping that up and keeping the momentum up. And I'm sort of solely in post here in Northern Ireland, so it can be quite hard for me to really pull together a very intense sort of outreach and engagement schedule for getting out to the expos and events. So I suppose that's where I was going with the personnel resource that you would need behind this to keep driving it.
Yeah, and that's where the partnerships with the groups for us, like the Canadian Transplant Association, the patient partner groups, who are very much advocates in all kinds of ways, having them almost become having them become champions has really made a difference for us in that kind of space. So they love to go out and talk about their experience, and even just relating back to the experience when we took it to the schools in South Africa, we had with us a patient partner who additionally told her story, and the kids were fascinated. So I would draw in those keen volunteers to help you continue to drive it.
Yeah, I think I also those other groups working in that space. It was really good at our launch event. There's lots of people asking people to donate things, and to close the loop with the recipient stories, and the people on the waiting list as advocates is always really interesting and empowering for the students. And then the bone marrow people. There's Captain Bone Marrow is the leader. The bone marrow donation registries, and there's multiple of those. And the blood services for us as well. We're very subdivided in South Africa, so blood keeps to themselves, tissues keeps to themselves, organs keeps to the hospitals. So we're not as well coordinated. But the Orgamites really help to bring that together and mobilize those people with the experience in educating in that space. And then I think I'm just sharing the gallery page because there's lots of different things that have been made based on the Orgamites to try and create that kind of engagement. This does cost money. If I looked at what we had on the stands, the lapel pins that were made that people could put onto their shirts or onto their badges were collected and created that goodwill. And the stickers went like hotcakes. And I know my children have stickers up in the house now all around related to the Orgamites. And these are also things that you can potentially fundraise for a discrete project and raise around it to try and amplify the Orgamites messaging. Because it just does ooze quality and class in terms of this is material that's been well thought out. But then hopefully it empowers the teachers to fundraise to run an Orgamites Day at their school or something like that.
So Hemel's got a question here. So imagine you're a teacher who wants to use it. Do you have to get permission from your principal, or what do you think? How would you play it?
Yes, I asked our teachers, and they just took it upon themselves. I'm pretty sure there was a corridor conversation with the principal to check they're not going to tread on toes. And the ultimate authority in our environment probably led with the principal, which is where the parental criticisms will feed back into the system if a parent took objection. And that's why the toolkit with the parental engagement part is really good. But actually, there was zero negative publicity or feedback from parents from anything in the South African context. And Peggy, I don't know, you also reported the same in Canada, hey?
Yeah, exactly. Similarly. And again, I think it might vary here, but certainly the teachers have a variety of areas of subjects they need to cover, and this fits nicely into a number of those areas. Whether it's the notion of health or kindness or all kinds of opportunities there. So
Final,
go ahead.
as we draw it to a close, any final questions? But there's just one more pick up from higher. So Antonio Rubino from England, and then Lucy replied about the age to aim for. I mean, obviously there's different versions of the program, but is there like an ideal age? Any thoughts about that? I know it was sort of mentioned a little bit in your talk, but is there an ideal age? Peggy first.
Well, it is aimed for children, ages 5 to 11, and certainly those primary levels children, the grades 1 and 2 are wonderful. But we were engaging even with the higher end, grade 4 and 5, and they're still very much fascinated by it. So I think there are sufficient enough variety of tools within the toolkits that you can really reach any age group in that spectrum.
David?
Yeah, it looked like the teachers naturally gravitated towards sort of age 8 to 9. So smack bang almost in the middle towards the upper end of that 5 to 11 age group. I think your 5-year-olds are going to color it in and be happy they're coloring something in. I think your 8-year-olds are going to be spreading the word about how often your heart is beating every minute or over the year. So it looked like the teachers naturally gravitated towards that age. But it isn't prescribed, and I think it is where you pick up your champions that are prepared to run with it, and it really works on all those age groups.
I know I saw a photograph from Greece and was in the back of a seat in one of the buses in Greece with an Orgamite sort of advertising. So it may be more universal. So we're going to draw it to an end. So I'm just going to let Peggy and David make any final comments at all. Vicente wonders whether we're going to do an international one. Yeah, we would love that. So please speak to rich people, and that would be wonderful. But Peggy, and thank you and David for sharing today. But any final words for you, and then I can close us off.
Well, I would say, like anything, education is the long game, right? It's going to take time. You will not be seeing immediate results, but you really need to stick with it and and believe, because it will work.
Yeah, and I just echo that it's a fun space to go in. I'm sitting in a hospital all the time, and this has been such a beautiful project to engage with just positive people that I don't get enough exposure to. So the school teachers are just absolutely amazing. And what they're doing with the children is really good. So linking this has just been fun. So I would advise it to anyone wanting to branch out. It's a fun space to go to.
Well, thank you both, and thank you, Canadian Blood Service, for the generosity and for everyone working together. This is what the project is all about. The Commonwealth Tribute to Life is that friendship across the Commonwealth, sharing knowledge and expertise. And we'll be back in 2 months' time. We're just working out the topic. So please join us in 2 months. Will be another webinar. But thank you for all the interconnection we've done through this project and all the work we're doing to save lives through that gift of donation. Thanks very much for joining today, and have a good evening, morning, or night, wherever you are right now. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Del.
Yes.
Thanks, Peggy.
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you very much.